Howdy everyone, grand rising or grand whatever party people Pleiasbians and they mamas. Welcome to Poetry on the Patio with Pleiades, my podcast, episode 19. Episode 19. We're out here on week 19 with again 30 minutes on the clock with this beautiful Joaquina clock that Joaquina got me for my birthday almost 2 months ago now, and I'm very grateful for it. Has actually caused me to have less anxiety, and yeah, it has shifted my life, and I'm continuing to shift my life alongside it, and I'm excited to see how I continue to shift my life alongside it. Anyway, we don't have a name for this podcast. I just posted Defiant Darius's interview today on October 6th, and this episode 16 again, the episode that is unnamed, which honestly, like, I would love to call this episode Unnamed. So let's do that. I think that's a great name. We've had portals, insanity, we've had interviews, we've had the village, we've had chores, we've taken a step back, we've actually been on the patio, we've opened up. We've had a lot of different energies, so I think Unnamed is great for today, for October 13th, and the week after that, episode 20 on October 20th, 2020, episode 20 on the 20th, that's going to be crazy. And then episode 21 still October, and then episode 22 is Alan's interview. So I've been preparing for that, and I'm going to continue to prepare for that. And while preparing for the podcast interview, that also helps me prepare for my future podcasts. I also wanted to talk about how I feel about Defiant Darius's interview and how that went. I feel very good about it. I feel like I moved forward as an interviewer. My first interview felt very experimental with Guy Shanks, and I still feel bad for that, but I'm sure Guy is more than all right about it and is understanding, even so, because he accepted the interview as the first interview, and Darius was my second interview. And I am not like a regular interviewer. When I say that, I mean I haven't interviewed a lot in my life. And when I was in high school, I did teen leadership. And in teen leadership, they made us interview some people. So I got to interview my um, high school principal, which was a lot of fun. I got to interview my favorite teacher. I think I interviewed my dad, but I interviewed, multiple people in the community. And I felt grateful that I had understood these people better and what they had been through in their lives and what they had done and how they got to where they are. I had heard a lifetime's worth of stories of these individuals from my sister and from other members of my community. So to get to know them one on one made me understand the world better, and that's similarly how I felt about my Defiant Darius interview and my Guy Shanks interview. And so yeah, I feel like my next interview, the one with Alan, um, this is one of my friends that's a filmmaker, and yeah, we went to high school together. There's plenty of things again in the community of how we have crossed paths, but I'm excited to cross paths once more in this way and see just how we can get to know each other better and how we can change the world together to be better, right? Because it's all about pushing each other and being better versions of ourselves. So yeah, I definitely feel like preparing for Alan's interview and thinking about how my interview with Defiant Darius went are both going to improve my podcast even. And a lot of people have said that they've gained like a lot of information from my podcast. They've learned a lot about podcasts in general and information in media in this world. They've learned about Houston and Austin and Texas and dating and sex even. We keep each other regular, and we have a reason to be on this earth. We've talked about secrets, we've talked about so many things, and Yeah, just to be a better podcaster is what my next year looks like. And I had set a committed goal of having a podcast a week, and that has happened for the last, again, 19 weeks, 18 weeks at least. And that is like a whole season, a season's worth of information. And I'm just going to continue creating seasons worth of information because I believe, again, it's fun, it's entertaining, you change the world around you and the world around you changes. And so I've been feeling like I've been a part of culture these days, and that's been really encouraging. My friends have been grateful for the opportunity, like Darius, and then other friends that I am going to put on the podcast in the future. They've been telling me how I have been creating opportunities for them, and not just creating opportunities for them and the world, but content is important and there's a place for it. Podcasts, interviews, there's a place for it. And not only have I committed to one episode a week, but now, earlier in the podcast, I had wanted to do one interview a month, or sorry, one interview every 2 weeks. So every other week would be me, every other week would be the interview, so you could understand how I fit into culture and how culture fits into me, and same vice versa. But I think I am just still creating how I fit into culture, and I am committing to one interview a month for this year. So that's 12 interviews, and so far I've had the conversation of four of them, and maybe five of them. So it's very exciting to think about like what the next step in conversations looks like. And yeah, just figuring out what balance looks like for me, because I'm a non-binary individual. I've been working on so many things, and being non-binary, there are so many sides of me that are pooled all throughout humanity. And I think I talked about how I chose my name back in one of these episodes, and I think I didn't describe how I recognize I'm trans. Maybe I did, maybe a little bit, like how when I was in college someone called me sir. Maybe I have not expressed this story before, but let me know if I have. Oh, Ty, I think maybe you would have the best memory on if I have expressed that story before. But yeah, I do want to say Otai this time because I used to call him Otis, and his name is Otai. His name is also Anthony, and I'm so grateful to know him. To be known is to be loved, and when I don't know people as well, I'm like, but I still love you. And so I have this lifelong goal of knowing people and loving people better, and loving humanity, loving my fellow human, and being the individual that can connect humanity as we know it. So yeah, let's continue to shape the world around us, right? It is beautiful. I am very grateful to be here. I'm very happy to be where I am. Let me talk about the left hand of darkness and the potluck book club that we had. First of all, potluck book club. Potlucks are amazing. Kate is amazing. Kate, if you're watching this, I don't know if you watch this video or this piece of media, my podcast, but it's amazing. We got to see Kate's household and to be a part of this space in community, and to speak about a book that means something to all of us. This book, The Left Hand of Darkness, was written in 1969, and Otai, the writer and my friend who has written about my podcast, has been showing interest in that book, and he watches a lot of good media and has a great mind for rap and just art in general and culture. So, seeing that writer and that reviewer being interested in it, and seeing how the community has been interested in it, and, to see that my friends have a book club, and like you can just that easily say, I want a book club, let's create a book club, and make people talk about the books, and like see how engaged your friends become. Like, it's so beautiful, and I'm so grateful. I brought cornbread and corn because I wanted to be a good individual, and I felt like I was not contributing enough. But I did feel great to be able to contribute, to meals that I feel very close to and that I feel like I love. I don't know. We're just, we're talking about ourselves. We're talking about other people. We're talking about culture, right? We're talking about this podcast. We're creating a podcast. Anyway, let's talk about the sobriety tapering check-in. Tapering, it's still going. I've been abstinent. I've been abstaining from alcohol and cigarettes for 2 years. And tomorrow, not exactly tomorrow when I'm taking this video, but on the 14th, after I post this, um, that will be 1 year from self-harm abstinence. And that is another sober decision that I had to make. Abstaining from things that harm me is a sober decision that I've been making. And sobriety, to talk specifically about what sobriety is being conscious of your choices, being sober on your choices, making more sober choices, making better choices, making choices, right? Choosing your choices carefully. And so, yeah, I haven't been sober with marijuana, and that's neither been here nor there. It's not like a bad thing, it's not a good thing either. Um, it's just a thing. And now that I'm able to recognize that a little more level headedly, I've been feeling a lot healthier, and using marijuana to, unfortunately, but also fortunately, sustain me medically as I work through the world and my depression, because I do know that I'm a very sensitive individual, and being so sensitive causes me to be depressed in this world. And that has just been the case throughout my entire childhood. So now that I'm older and I'm recognizing like how my energy affects other people, and not just how my energy affects other people, but how I want my energy to affect other people, right? Um, yeah, getting to choose that more carefully and flowing and speaking my truth, it's all been wonderful. My podcast has changed alongside me, and that's exactly why I wanted to do this. I wanted to be shaped and to shape culture. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. Oh, and that is amazing because that gets me down to my next topic, which is how grateful I am for my audience. And I wanted to say that because, this is a very grassroots movement, and it's literally just me creating my community around me, and every single individual who watches my podcast is a part of that conversation, from Otai being a writer, and to all of the individuals who have messaged me in my direct messages and have said how much they are grateful, like my friend Grace, who is moving to California soon. First of all, I love you, Grace. Who has told me that it feels like a FaceTime call, and like, life is getting so busy these days. It's really difficult to make time for everything, and I'm friends with so many people in this world, and I want to continue gathering friends and reuniting with other friends, and leaving some friends that may be toxic in the moment and coming back to them in another point in life, and having chances while we're alive in this world. Like, I am just so grateful for my audience and for a chance to live and to wake up with fresh new baby eyes and grow and teach and to drink water and continue to hydrate. Just like yawns are contagious, like yawning, breathing more air into our body when we're sleeping, especially. Water, drinking water is contagious. It's contagious for me, at least. Being hydrated is contagious. Being a human is contagious for me. Oh, and what I wanted to specifically say about how grateful I am to my audience, like, first of all, every day is a celebration. I have been celebrating for a long time now, but especially more so like these last couple of weeks with my podcast, the last 19 weeks with this podcast. My life has had so many more reasons to celebrate, and every day is another reason to celebrate. And, I will continue to provide choices and options for my community, like the interview, having a podcast, um, to choose my media. I'll continue to contribute my thought of mind, my peace of mind into the world. I'll continue to be shaped by the universe and continue to learn alongside it and be malleable and not be gullible, at the same time. And so what I wanted to say is, like, yeah, the first episode that I had 300 viewers, and then one of these episodes along the road had also 300 viewers, and then every now and then I get like 100 viewers. But even on a day when I don't advertise at all, even on those days I get 20 viewers. And that has shown me a lot about what is different these days in the world and who we are. And also, I think having a podcast is wonderful because you get to show who you are, and I think that's something that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. I don't know if y'all know this, but after I record the podcast, I don't watch it. I don't think there's time to watch it, and it's not saying that like that makes me a worse person for not thinking twice or being careful and editing carefully. I don't have an editor. I am the editor, and I do my best to be the editor that I am, and I am also the videographer. I'm also the podcaster. I'm also the interviewer. I'm also the community member. I'm also the friend. And, we're just creating opportunities for each other. And right now, like building the stability of this podcast is what needs to continue because I am in a band and oh wow, and that's crazy. Like that moves me to the next thing. Like all of a sudden everything is flowing exactly how it needs to be. Um and wow, yeah, the podcast has slowed down kind of. I could not be this person without alcohol, cigarettes, nicotine, vapes, and weed vapes being out of my life. And I wanted to say that specifically because, like, if I did not choose to abstain, I would not have to have filled my life with something. And the podcast fills my life with something so I could fill other people's life with something, because yeah, this is for me, but ultimately it's for other people more so than me. It was never about me. And my sister was the one who told me that I should have a podcast, and other people have told me that I should have a podcast all throughout my life. But ultimately, like even though people had told me I needed a podcast because I had good information to share, I could not have been this person unless I've abstained from those substances. And like even this person that I am right now, I'm not abstaining from weed. I would like to. But I'm making more sober choices and I'm choosing to be more sober through the sober choices I've made the last couple of years of my life, right? Like I had chosen alcohol and nicotine and weed when I was younger in a not sober fashion and got addicted in a not sober fashion. And so, I've been questioning a lot about genetics and how we get to express the DNA inside of us. And so the reason the podcast has slowed down a lot is just because of the time that we are in our life, right? Like Otai, the writer, has, I feel like, um been writing a lot more, and that's just in general. And like my podcast being a part of the writing, like that has sped up his life in some form or fashion. And this is me assuming, and that's why I'm sharing this into the universe, because it's like those are the things that we talk about, right? Like people need to write, people need to make articles, and people need to make podcasts. And that's ultimately why I have this podcast at the end of the day. Like yes, this is 20 weeks worth of media, but also I'm wondering, it's wondrous, it's ponderous for me, and it's encouraging for me to imagine that because I have showed people how hard I have worked and how hard you have to work to create a podcast. And, I have shifted from going between different locations, and there's different times in how I have set this space up in my week, right? And in a way, this has become a substance. I have been able to release like a journal, but also invite you guys into my mind and sit with you guys to see your minds and slow down in that way, because I do have a lot of friends, and in this world I will only continue to create friends because the world creates more friends for me when they have more babies, individuals like mothers. And then I know my friends that are already mothers, their babies, and then they become my friends as they learn themselves and they become friends with themselves, right? Anyway, this podcast has slowed down a lot. I have goals for the next year to continue maintaining interviews so people can search up, oh, Defiant Darius, Guy Shanks, Alan, Otai, my friends, and they can see the podcast and they can see my friends. And if they search up my friends, they see my podcast. It's just like a huge cycle, a link, connection. So we talked about sobriety. Let's talk about my album. So my album has also slowed down a lot because, well, also in a lot of ways it's sped up a lot because my brain is working on a different level these days. I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm on my highest timeline. And, I've been pondering upon my highest timeline for some time. And because of that, I've exceeded things that I've expected to be at this point in my life. Like I have a podcast. I continue to treat the podcast like my baby. I've wanted a podcast for so long. So why would I not continue to give care to it and be healthy with it? Like we have 10 minutes left, and the timer has also helped me, but also I've had to help my podcast by, since I record on my phone, to move space around. And that has been an interesting time to say the least. And to advertise my podcast, right? The world, it needs to continue to see me. I need to be seen. I also want to talk about Missing California, Chicago. it's been 1+ year since the last time that I went to California, and it's been 10 years. Sorry, it's been 10+ years since I last went to Chicago. The last time I went to Chicago was 2014, and I've been wanting to go to Chicago. I was supposed to go to Chicago earlier this year, earlier in September, actually, last month, but it just didn't work out, and that's okay that it didn't work out. But I went to Caprock Canyon last month, and we got back around this time of the month, actually, and I had been around nature, and right now I'm missing nature, but I am in Manor where there is more nature, and my time in Manor is about to come up, and then I'm going to be in Houston. And Houston, the buzz and the bees of Houston is even more insane because there's the buzz of Katy, which is honestly like somewhere in between Manor and Austin. And I'm saying this based on what I know, right? Because it's also probably somewhere in between Leander and Austin, and Georgetown and Austin, and Buda and Austin, and Kyle and Austin, right? It's like all of these surrounding cities. There's like a middle point where it is similar to how Katy, Texas's energy is right now, because Katy, Texas is more so the energy of Manor, and more so the energy of like Georgetown or any of these other cities. But Katy itself is more advanced because it's like closer to Houston, and it's like been growing. And like then there's Sealy outside of Katy, which is growing probably closer to where Manor is. Anyway, everything's growing in so many different ways. The world is growing. San Antonio is growing. Texas is growing. There's 8 billion people in the world now. I don't know if y'all know that. We had 7 billion for the majority of my childhood. And now in like 20 years, going from like half 7.5 billion, and getting half a billion in 20 years. I'm like, how are we able to do this? Like, are we under control? Like, I know we have control as a legality issue, all throughout lifetime, because we think we know how to control ourselves best. And then we think we know how to control each other because of that reason. Anyway, we're about near with this podcast, folks. Today's episode, I feel like, is very unnamed. Like there's not very specific things that we have talked about. And also next week, all I know is that I want to talk about that it is episode 20 on October 20th of 2020, which is a portal, because it's a portal specifically that I created and that the world created for me, and I want to dive into that. And that's another portal, so we can name it Portal. And the other thing is about how October 19th, which is the day before Portal, is the celebration of 2 years sober from nicotine vapes, which is really difficult because, like, a lot of people, they stay away from drugs their entire life, but it's one thing to stay away from drugs from your entire life, and another thing to stay away from drugs the other half of your life, or the post trying drugs era of your life, because every drug is a gateway drug in some form or fashion. Anyway, I don't have anything else that I want to talk about next week. We don't have those thoughts thought of yet. I'm going to work on that as I work on my experiences with um thinking about the other interviews with Free Hamza, and also my friend Alan, the filmmaker. Free Hamza is an artist, a musician, a community builder, an activist, a Palestinian. Alan, my friend, that's a high schooler, also an artist, also a community member, graphic designer, does amazing stuff with videography. I'm excited for these conversations coming up, and that encourages me to watch more podcasts. And I wasn't not watching podcasts when I started the podcast. I mean, I had, like, in my past, but like nothing on YouTube, and like now I've been cleaning and I listen to podcasts because you have to feed two birds with one hand. um and yeah, the podcast slowed down, which is why it's called Unnamed. But we're gonna shift. Like, I think the way to speed it up is just to get some change, and the way that we can get those changes is, like I said, in the next year I have committed to the one interview a month. And interviews always bring good energy, and it brings someone else to the YouTube channel, which is a lot of fun. And on top of the interviews, the next thing that we know is going to help with speeding the process up is continuing to post the videos in between the interviews, but maybe we'll go to bi-weekly videos, which will be sad for all of us, but we need change in the world. There's different paces and things are slowing down on the podcast because my life is speeding up. Like, I'm working on my piano for the band, and there's information that's going through with the band. So as the band prioritizes in my life, the podcast deprioritizes, and then there's also the book and everything else that I'm working on. So, like, whew, I am a human being. We are all human beings. And with that, I'm going to take these last couple of minutes to do what I am always here for, which is to remind each other what we're here for, which is to hydrate, to love each other, to breathe, to slow down, to watch podcasts, to inform each other, to inform ourselves, to grow alongside a community, to educate ourselves through reading, through experiencing, through juggling, to go out into community, to compete with one another, to be on our highest timeline. And with that, I thank y'all for sitting here with me while I'm living a busy bee of a life. Until next time, my loves. Bye bye.